Well, it's wonderful to be here as always. I remember I came here just after that very big typhoon that took out Tacloban and other areas just near there. And now we've just had another couple with a few earthquakes to go with it. And Taal is moving, and we just discovered a big caldera just off of northern Luzon. So we've got plenty of dancing to do with the natural world. But you know what's wonderful about the Philippines is everyone is really used to all these things. And when things get really tough, everybody just has a good laugh and gets on with it. I think part of the reason why this is happening is because the connection between people is so strong that when something is needed, everybody grabs what they need and they come together and they just do what has to be done, and off we go merrily along the way. So this is a very, very lovely attitude that we have here in the Philippines, which is wonderful. And maybe I can share some of the things that I have studied, which really help a person to keep on top of things, no matter which culture they come from or which religious background they are in. I think for me, one of the most important things is to really understand who you are as an individual. And I think mostly people don't know who they are. When you get born, you get reflected back to yourself from all the people around you, your family, your school, your religious environment, and the social environment. And they tend to reflect you back according to certain criteria, which are really very physical. And one thing that I know for sure is that there's really nothing physical about the inner being, which is really the soul, the spirit, which is invincible, indestructible, eternal, immortal, and it's really quite amazing. But it's not much sustained in the narrative that we experience on a day-to-day level because the world we live in is so dominated by material realities, materialism, material expectations, all this kind of thing. So I think one of the key factors is to realize that the narrative is just a story and it's not necessarily the best story. There are other stories that are better stories. And I think that when you give importance to your inner life, importance to your spiritual life, you find that you're working with a very different narrative. And I think the most important is to realize that you have value. And your value is nothing to do with the criteria that people normally give you to do with your educational achievements or your social status or how much money you've got or how many status symbols you've got, what car you're driving, all this kind of thing is not real. What's real is like this glow within, this understanding that I am loved by God, I am loved by the world, and I love myself. And there's nothing egotistical about it, even though the other narrative says, no, no, if you think like that, that's ego. No, it's not. It's self-honor, self-respect, self-recognition, self-esteem. And then you want to go deep and deep and deep to find out now what is it about me that's special? And what is it about me that God sees? Because after all, God sees everything and everyone very carefully. And to call you to understand the spiritual dimension of life at a deep level, I think is extraordinary because what that does is it sets you up for life. And of course, the life is a great university in which you have continuous assessment. And so there are always little or big tests. And the tests that you must pass are all to do with deception. Deception is a very important thing to understand. So it is said that your eyes deceive you the most. So what happens to a lot of people these days who are on social media a lot of time is they see comparisons between themselves and some AI generated image, which is supposed to be perfect. And the message is always that you are less than perfect. So I think what's important is you have to neutralize that dialogue and understand that, you are created by the creator, absolutely perfect. And the criteria for perfection has to be something like natural, you see. If you look at the Philippines, it's very rich in nature. The jungles are full of medicinal plants. The horizon is filled with beautiful mountains. The rain, the green, the rivers, the animals, everything is in perfect balance. And all you have to do is be in that to be reminded that you are part of the natural world. And the natural world is, by definition, really beautiful. So, what kind of ugliness gets in the way? I think it's also very much to do with how you interpret what happens to you, how you interpret the way people reflect you back to yourself. And you have to be your own reflector. I think that's really very helpful. And you need also access to this other story that I'm talking about, the story that you are, absolutely the best of the best of the best. And if you forget who you are, then you absorb into yourself the elements of doubt, of the concern for looking good as opposed to being really beautiful, really lovely, and you suffer a lot when you don't do this. I was talking the other day to someone who had all kinds of problems, health problems, relationship problems, all of these things. And most of the problem comes from um, doubt of how valuable you are as a person, doubt of how beautiful you are as a person. And beauty, I'm not talking about physical beauty, I'm talking about the beauty of the heart, the beauty of the value of a person who cares, who loves, who accommodates all sorts of negative feedback and so on. And gosh, if you take that on and take that in, then all your energy gets drained away. So I think probably a very helpful aspect is to have a good sense of humor, you know, and if you think, okay, well, it all depends on merits, say, for example, you say that. So if somebody is giving you a hard time and trying to take you down and pull you down and make you doubt yourself and so on, you say to them in your mind, probably not out loud, just privately in your mind, you say, well, be my guest. If you want to clock up all this negative karma, that's great. That means there's no competition for me because I'll just go ahead in the journey that carries a person to the final destination, which is to be really united with yourself are united with the Supreme Being and united in love with people who can really see you. And that seeing, we also call it, 'cause I do meditation, and we also talk about the third eye. The third eye can see what the two eyes cannot see. And the two eyes cannot see what the third eye can see. And the third eye can see who you really are. And that means you can see who other people are, and you can see who yourself is. And when you see who yourself is, which is so beautiful and so wonderful and so valuable, and you realize that when you are like this, of course you will be tested. Why should you not be tested? You have to be tested because with that, you become strong, and you become experienced, and you can manage in a world which has all kinds of challenges, basically dancing through it because you feel I'm not alone. I'm always with the Supreme Being. I'm always with God. I'm protected. I'm loved. I'm appreciated. And I am destined for all of the wonderful things that life can possibly give. So these are a few thoughts about how you can be really comfortable with yourself no matter what.
Yep, Denise, you may want to continue the session up until 11:40. And if you can provide the meditation experience in between, that will be very good. While I'm actually consolidating some of the questions here.
Okay, I'm just trying to see what time it is.
It's
But
11:15, so you still have about 30 minutes.
all right,
Right.
okay. So I thought you were going to ask me more questions and that we would have a dialogue, but this is fine. I am quite much of a monologuist. So now let's take a look at some things that happen to a person in life that let you know who you are. And one of the things I'd like to really introduce is the idea of destiny, because you do have a destiny. And depending on who you are, such is your destiny. And if you understand who you are, you have the opportunity to actually shape your destiny. One of the things we know about happiness is that it is increased and intensified proportionately to how much happiness you give other people. So you can give other people happiness by fulfilling their desires, which may be short-lived. You can give happiness to people by relieving them of their troubles, their sorrows, their difficulties. But I think the greatest happiness that you give to a person is the happiness of knowing who they are, knowing what their value is, and knowing a bit more about their immortality, about their eternity, about their freedom, and to look at the world as a big 3D movie, and that you are moving through all of these scenes, and some of them are wonderful, and some of them are horrible, and some of them are boring, and some of them are irritating. They come in all types. And it's like a 3D movie with lots and lots of different channels. And so when you come across a situation that is too much for you or really difficult, you can switch channels. And think of yourself as an actor. And think of yourself as an actor is quite an interesting way to go because when you're an actor, you play the scene. And the role that you play, of course, it's informed by who you are, But the circumstances that you're in is nothing to do with whether you deserve it or not. A lot of people don't get that. Now, you may be in a difficult circumstance, which is testing you and asking you to rise to the occasion so that you find out capabilities about yourself that you didn't know you had or that you didn't have before, or that you didn't realize that all these things are there just for you to stretch yourself, for you to enable yourself to grow and to become more diverse as an individual. And life is teaching us some very subtle lessons. One of the things that we need in order to be really happy, I think, is to be really strong. You see, I don't mean physically strong, but strong in terms of resilience. And resilience is something that you've been talking quite a lot about, Jonathan. So let's take a little look about what it takes to be resilient. And it has to do with the ability to bounce back quickly, no matter what happens. And that you don't mind when things go wrong. You take it in your stride, you take it easy, you take it that, it's all in the game and it's fine. Um, if a person has a really bad ego problem, which a lot of people do, they become very sensitive about these things. And of course, when you want to develop yourself internally, you come across your ego problems. And people do have. What is an ego problem after all? To me, it's all to do with your traumas. And in life, people do experience traumas, especially in childhood. Childhood trauma is very severe because a child is absolutely not equipped to deal with it. And these traumas create terrible wounds in the soul. And it wounds a person's ability to function well in the social environments, or it affects their ability to operate well educationally and professionally or in relationships. And these wounds are, at face value, they're really quite bad. But then you have to ask yourself, okay, what is the reason why such an incredible, amazing person as myself would come face to face with these traumas, especially at an early age where you have no recourse, you have no way to deal with it, and you just get, sometimes quite brutally wounded, and it stays with you for life. Now, in spiritual practice, you use these things. You go back to this, all of these distortions that happen and which create the ego masks, you see. And so why you get all these clashes of ego is because there's so many people who have been, blessed or cursed with trauma, especially childhood trauma. And it's the ego mask bashing against somebody else's ego mask. And a lot of time it results in addictions, it results in illnesses, it results in mental illness, not just physical illness, um, different types of disabilities, which are because of the psychological wounds. But when you look at it in a different way, and you see that these traumas are there to let me understand something very important about who I am. You see, when you have suffered a great deal, it means you understand suffering, you understand other people's suffering. It means you can empathize with them, and you can even become a force of healing because you know what it's like. You've been through what they've been through, and you are quite able to help them to come out of that situation because you came out of it yourself. Sometimes there are people who are, on the other hand, really protected, overprotected, and they never learn how to deal with a hostile environment. And so even when they've grown up and they've got maybe all the educational qualifications, but they don't have street sense, you see. And so you can't really manage life if you don't have street sense. You've got to be able to be a good judge of character. You've got to know what's coming down the road to meet you. You've got to be able to evaluate people accurately, evaluate situations accurately so that you can handle yourself when the confrontations come. And so all the practice you can get is helpful. And it doesn't really matter if you fail or if you fall apart or whatever. No, you remind yourself who you are and you do not give yourself that self-talk which says, oh, why did this happen to me? And what did I do to deserve this? No, this is actually faulty logic. Who says that something happens to you because you deserve it? It's hardly ever that. Mostly something happens to you so that you can reveal your resilience, your strength, your ability to think on your feet, to be inventive, to manage unexpected situations. And this is where the leadership capability of a person starts to come through. You see, one needs to have this compassion. You need to have this empathy with other human beings because otherwise you become part of the problem. And if you become part of the problem, you're not going to keep your happiness very well because you're going to do things which are going to cause you to have to pay a heavy price. Maybe ignorance, maybe selfishness, maybe whatever it is, but you didn't understand what the human life experience is about. We need to know the dark side. We need to know the shadow side, because without that, we don't have the contrast. And then our happiness would be very superficial. Superficial happiness doesn't have so much value. But when you've understood the shadows and you've understood the dark side and you move through it, you're not afraid of death. You're not afraid of pain. You're not afraid of rejection. You're not afraid of character assassination. You're not afraid of all the bad things that can be done to you because you have connected with yourself and you've understood who you are and what your value is. And so those things are not taken personally. Those things remain in your eyes lies or just tests which you sail through, and they help you to become more capable, more confident, and more loving. You see, because nowadays, in many ways, I mean, I traveled all over the world, so I've seen all different religions and cultures and places. And what I've seen is that the commodity that is missing more and more and more is love. And if there isn't love in the world, then there's no life, you see. But unless you've really passed through all sorts of things, you cannot really develop genuine, deep, pure love, love for the soul, love for the beings who you encounter on your journey through life. And love also can be tough love. It doesn't have to be, or it really shouldn't be, this lovey-dovey stuff. No. True love is where you really know the person, see the person, care for the person. And that's not just only people, but that also extends to the world, to the natural world, to everything that is being damaged by human lack of empathy or lack of value for the other, because of only being concerned about what you can get out of things or out of people or out of circumstances. And if you become like that, then sooner or later, something will happen which puts you face to face with real reality. Sometimes it can be a life-threatening illness or accident or loss, something that really kind of blows apart your assumptions, your superficial assumptions about what life is. And then when a person really goes through their pain and meets their shadow and plumbs the depth of their being, then they're able to become possibly even one of the best because you get it, because you faced it. This takes courage, you know. And a person who's really loving is also a person who's courageous. I think also we need to be slightly hard. If you're too soft, you're not going to be able to make it. If you're slightly hard as well as loving, then you're not going to be a pushover. You're not going to be manipulated. This is also another problem. But if you're slightly hard, then you stand your ground, you remain who you are, and you do what has to be done, which is beneficial for that other or that situation, circumstance, or group, without compromising yourself. And you remain a person with a clean, clear conscience. And I don't think a person can be happy if they don't have a clear conscience. I mean, one thing I came to realize about myself is I can't be bent, I can't be bought, I can't be, threatened, I can't be broken, I can't have um, my sense of self taken away by somebody's messing around with it. And when you can keep your sense of self total, regardless of what people do, I think the level of happiness that you have with that is deepest. And it's not a happiness that involves being bubbly or something like that, but it's a kind of happiness that when you end your life, in whatever way you end it, you will say, yeah, I passed the tests, I did my time, I paid my dues, I created my fortune, and there's nothing left that remained unattended to, and I'm happy to go, you see. And I also, because of studying spirituality, I also learn about the afterlife, you see, because it doesn't just finish when your body finishes. The afterlife is very important. And you need to be in that very powerful self-integrated state to move into the afterlife, carrying with you a very beautiful additional destiny that unfolds in front of you as the fruits of a good life that you have lived, facing the challenges, passing the tests, dealing with failure, dealing with all the things that have to happen, and there it is, you know. So how are we doing for our time, Jonathan? Because I don't have a clock in front of me that I can see.
Perhaps, Vigenti, we can have a wrap up of this and conclude it with a meditation commentary. We have quite a number of questions already in the chat room, and I'm sure you're going to be very, very enlightened with these questions. Very interesting questions. So maybe a few insights to wrap up and a meditation experience from you. Thank you.
Okay, well, I mean, basically, in conclusion, I think the most important thing is to be right with yourself, to be true to yourself. And of course, it's going to cost you a fortune to do the right thing every time. But because you're wealthy with your inner power and your inner resilience and your inner experience, you're ready to pay, but you're not ready to compromise. And, you're not ready to take on any stains on your soul because, after all, I'm an immortal being of light and I have to live with myself forever. So I don't want to compromise that for anything. So let us take a look at a way to meditate. Meditation is now getting more and more popular. More and more people are doing it, and there's many ways that people do it. But I like to share with you the way I do it. So the first step, there's really two steps. And the first step is to turn within. And turning within means that you turn your attention away from the external world and start to think about, what does it feel like to be me deep down inside? The soul is like a star, the spark of life. It is extraordinary and indestructible, and it is me. I am the light, and I am forever. And my essence is stillness. I am at peace with myself. I am at peace with whatever has happened, whatever is happening. And I'm ready for whatever is to happen, good or bad. My essence is loving. I have great inner richness, and my love is to allow it to spill out and reach wherever it needs to reach. I am a conduit. When I am connected with myself, the soul, I come onto the same dimension as the Supreme Spirit, as God, the Creator, Beloved One. You connect with that energy, that light, and then the purity, the peace, the love not only fills you, but it passes through you and reaches to all places. You hold steady, you hold still, focused, connected, and just allow yourself to be an instrument, a conduit for that extraordinary pure energy to reach any part of the world which needs that love, which needs that strength, which needs that resilience, and let it reach there to soothe troubled souls, to heal the wounded, to give a feeling of companionship to the lonely and those who have lost so many things, family, their home, their things, their livelihood. There are so many. And your willingness to be a conduit for that pure love to reach them was a very beautiful service for the world. And just take time every so often to just sit in that connected state, be open, and allow the purity, the peace, the love to pass through you and reach wherever it wants to go, needs to go. You are just an instrument. Thank you.
Thank you for that experience of peace, Vigenti, and thank you also for your perspectives, which give us not only tools, but a new lens for how we approach our day-to-day pressures. Now, there are actually so many questions in the chat. It's quite noisy now. But let's start first with the insights you mentioned about self-perception earlier. If your eyes can deceive you, then what is the most reliable way to truly see yourself? You mentioned earlier about you being light. Can you elaborate on this, Vigenti?
Well, I think the most reliable thing you have is your conscience. And your conscience lets you know two different types of things. One is it let you know whether something is correct or incorrect in terms of, it makes sense, it's coherent, it's consistent, it fulfills criteria for whether something's true or false, like this. And then you also have this other part of your conscience, which people may be more familiar with, about action, that whether your action is right or wrong, whether it's appropriate, whether it is suitable for the moment. You know that you can't rely on general rules because circumstances are absolutely individual. And when you are, I think you have this intention of being right with yourself. That means you listening to the voice of conscience and you don't go against it. That means that your voice of conscience will be always ready to let you know, do this, don't do that, go here, don't go here, do nothing, do something. You will get that kind of internal instruction. And in that way, you do end up doing the right thing. And when you do the right thing, you are right with yourself. And you cannot rely on public opinion. That is the least reliable thing in the world, although everybody thinks it's great, but it's absolutely not. So you need to challenge that assumption. I do all the time. Um, and you also need to challenge the voice of authority because the authorities are not necessarily reliable. They have their own agenda, but your conscience is devoted to you. And so I live by my conscience, and I'm happy with that.
Mhm. There's been so much corruption in the world now, and there are quite a number of our listeners who are business executives here. So, what is your recommendation or suggestion for them to be able to cope with and not being part of a very corrupt world, when in fact every facet of business life now is actually there's corruption.
Business life, political life, military
Okay.
life, the education system, the universities, all of it is like that. And I think we have to come to terms with the fact that this is that time that, on the whole, the people in leadership position are not very intelligent. You can say morally intelligent because, there's no way that you can avoid paying for your mistakes. And, sometimes what happens as a consequence of corruption is that buildings fall down, roads fall down, houses, are toxic. Many, many people are injured or killed or something like this. And you are accumulating a debt to all those people, which has to be paid. And that
Mhm.
comes mostly at the moment of your death. So you need to understand that you are not immortal in the sense of you will die, but you don't want to die in a really bad situation, because if you do all these things that damage all these people, it means that you will die in a really bad situation. And that will completely wipe out any kind of temporary wealth that you might have gained through your
Mhm.
correct practices. And you will be, you know, um, you will have betrayed yourself. And
Mhm.
that's the worst thing to do, to betray yourself, let alone betray
Mhm.
everybody else, but betray yourself. Why would you do that?
Mhm.
It's not
Yeah.
worth it.
Yeah. Given the fact that we should not be part of this corrupted system, how can I be an instrument for transforming it?
Well, one thing is the case is that you can't really fix it because it's absolutely
Mhm.
endemic. And so
Mhm.
you have to work around it and you have to do the best that you possibly can, you see, because if you become like over idealistic, then you'll just end up on the streets because you'll get fired immediately. And so you need to be very creative so that
Mhm.
you can do the very best you can under the circumstances and do the best you can to not betray yourself.
Mhm.
And this will earn you the respect of other people. And I found this that the life will test you a lot if you do these things, but eventually your fortune that you are earning by the quality of person that you are is going to come to you, and it won't be tainted. It won't be with blood on it,
Mhm.
it'll come to you. And I mean, how many houses do you need to live in? How many meals do you need to eat? It's like you need to uh, be comfortable with simplicity. That really helps, you see. And then there's less, incentive to need something. Like if you say, okay, I've got to keep up with the Joneses, so I've got to have a house, and I've got to have a fancy car, and then somebody comes along and says, okay, you want all these things, so let me help you to do that. And in the process, you have to blacken your soul, and you won't be
Mhm.
able to say no. But if you keep things simple, you're in a much better position to decline, you see. And if you have to get fired or whatever it is, another thing will come to you, because to me, the worst thing is to compromise your soul.
Thank you for those insights, Denise. Well, I'll just probably lump some of these questions in the chat room. Well, the workplace, Vijay, is considered to be a corporate jungle or a war zone. Well, it is a dog eat dog world, and there's too much stress and work related pressure where the expectations getting more while resources are dwindling. May you share how we can be able to cope with stress and burnout, and what could be some ways to overcome them?
I think I would have to say that you put at the highest position in your value system what's more important to you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to go into the corporate world, it means that it promises you easy money quickly, and it doesn't let you read the small print. But if you have a bit more balanced life and you find you recognize your capabilities and your talents, and you find a way to create money and create a living for yourself, which really corresponds to who you are, but which may not make you rich and famous like all these other people who will end up losing everything, their wife, their children, their this, their that, because in the corporate world, it's very toxic.
Mm-hmm.
It's very full of broken marriages, children who fail to have any kind of decent relationship with their parents. It's like not worth it. And then the other thing is, if you look at the world economy, you will find that it is really, really fragile. And the first things to go are these corporations, because their wealth is on paper only. It's not real stuff, you see. And then it all blows up, and then you have
Mm-hmm.
nothing,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Okay. Well, of course, the workplace is now considered to be very stressful and burnout. And when you go also at the home front, you have equally the same stress with relationships and responsibilities. So, how do you now balance your personal and professional life?
Well, partly it has to do with whether you create your own values or whether you espouse the values that public opinion says is the best. And as you heard me say before, the public opinion about all this stuff to me is completely insane and damaging, because you become just slaves to the advertisers, slaves to the people who say that you're no good unless you have this, that, or the other. And you got to have this level of clothing, this kind of beauty, da 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 da. Nobody is able to love in that situation, because it's people are set against each other in their relationships and so on. You never really learn how to build a decent relationship with another person to share your life with. You don't have a good relationship with the environment around you. You just become a human predator. And what's so great about that?
Yeah, yeah. Still on pressure, but this time involving social media. Can
Yeah.
you give us some tips on how to deal with the pressure of social media?
Well, I belong to the first half of the previous century where there wasn't any. And, I lasted about 3 seconds on Facebook, so I couldn't figure it out, and I didn't like it anyway. And there was other people always interfering with my existence, so I said, we don't need that. And so I really don't use it. My background is investigative journalism, so I'm quite good at investigating to find out what's what. And I'm not really interested in who had what for breakfast, and who's going out with whom, and the holidays, and I don't know what people are into. But for me, they're so superficial that I just don't get attracted to it. And I think that the young people who get caught up in it are really being betrayed by the society, because the problem is that um, it's a predatory thing, social media.
Mhm,
You must
mhm.
have seen that movie about how how Facebook came into being, which was all
Mm-hmm.
about how to be, a, how to prey on young women in a university. That's totally what it's all about, and that doesn't have any value. It has a negative value.
Okay.
Um,
Yep, there's a question here about trauma, childhood trauma. How can we effectively address childhood trauma, especially when these experiences may have been forgotten but still reside in our subconscious? Deep question. Eh?
No, it's a very important question because it's one that I look at and deal with it daily, because I'm all the time encountering people who are dealing with it. And the thing is that once you start to realize that you need to take care of your inner life and develop your spirituality and so on, all this stuff will come up and all the forgotten things will come pouring through from your subconscious to your conscious mind. And so you need good people who can help you through it. You need a good understanding of how to look at yourself in the face of how the world has reflected you back to yourself. And because childhood trauma is all about abuse and, all these in the media, these Epstein files and so on. Now, I followed that story from years, so I know exactly who's on the list. And these are predatory people who have become very important in a predatory world, who teach people to be predators. And in my analysis of it, I ended up thinking that the source of it is war.
Mhm,
Because when anybody goes to war or is in a war situation, there are no rules and there's no defense. There's uh, no recourse. People are made into predators, killers, torturers, and they carry that with them. They pass it on to their kids and their next generation. So we live in a world where war is the greatest driver of the economy, and all the technological advancements are only funded if they have a military use. And so the
mhm,
human life is cheap,
mhm,
really cheap. And
mhm,
and so you find yourself affected by it. I don't know too many people who have not been affected by it. And so now it is a time of healing. And
mhm,
one thing that gives me a lot of optimism is I think people are just reached a point where they're totally disillusioned with all this narrative that says all this stuff that you should buy into. And and the spirit is taking its more rightful position, and people are working through these things and healing and there's great change happening in the world, and change is, of course, very disruptive, very disturbing. You have to be smart and skilled and strong and courageous to navigate it. But if you have a few people who are ready to do it, then others can follow, and that becomes okay. So
mhm.
I think that this is very important to do.
Yeah,
Mm.
thank you for those insights, Vigenti. You mentioned about healing and you introduced us earlier to a meditation exercise. How can meditation heal?
Well, I don't think that feeling is as reliable as knowing.
Mm-hmm,
People are very into feeling, and it's very easy for somebody who has any kind of skill to present something which makes you feel good, you know.
mm-hmm,
But you may not be, it may hide a nasty knife inside it, you know. Um, I, why do you want people to feel good? What's the catch, you know? And if people rely on their feelings, they can be very easily manipulated. And
Mm-hmm.
so to me, I make a difference between feelings and knowing.
Mm-hmm.
You may feel good one day for about 3 minutes, and then you feel bad the next day for 100 years. And it's very up and down, usually more down than up. And then you want to have a feel good thing, so you take heroin, which makes you feel good. Then you need more energy, so you take cocaine, and then eventually you get into ecstasy and then other things, which all take you to hell. But stuff, when you know stuff, then you're able to make a considered decision.
Mm-hmm.
And you're able to understand that love has nothing to do with feeling. It's
Mm-hmm.
all to do with what do you do? How do you treat another person? Uh, how do you understand about caring? But
Mm-hmm.
because everything is sense perception and glorification of sense perception, which is by definition deceptive, and it's all about feeling good,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
avoiding feeling bad. You need to handle your negative feelings, and you need to understand that your positive feelings are very temporary, and that's all very well and good, but knowing and being is permanent, it's sustainable, it's much more real.
Mm-hmm.
So I go for that.
Yeah. The mind is said to be has a tendency to go into the past, particularly pains and wounds. How can meditation heal psychological wounds?
Well, you see, one thing that's very helpful is to realize when you analyze it adequately, you cannot find who is the original one to blame. It's too complicated. And you need to understand that effectively no one is to blame.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever somebody did or didn't do, it's like, okay, it happened, and so be it. You
Mm-hmm.
let it go and repair yourself and move on and get strength from what happened to you, and also be, compassionate and get back to your freedom.
You
And
need to have
whatever
a lot of
happened, happened,
yeah.
you know?
You need to have a lot of emotional resilience to cope with that, Denise. Maybe I'd like to ask probably one or two more questions. There's still a lot of questions, but in the interest of time, we probably have to accommodate one or two more. In a world full of discrimination that also causes pressure on individuals, can you give us some tips on how to deal with it? Pressure about discrimination.
Well, a lot of people are discriminated against from gender. That's the biggest one. And then race. And if you don't know people, you come from a lower end of society, whatever it is, discrimination is all about the privileged few getting a so-called free lunch and everybody else getting deprived. And it creates imbalance. So what do? You have to navigate your way and find your way, and maybe you have to be 50 times better than the competition, but be it. You have to understand what you really want to accomplish and go ahead and accomplish it regardless of the discrimination. Don't allow it to take you down, to get the better of you, to make you give up. You don't have to give up.
Mhm. Being my last question, Denise, there are quite a number of business executives who are listening now.
Mm.
And having been a meditation practitioner for almost 50 years, can you share with us your secrets, probably tips to gain most of the benefits in meditation?
Well, the important thing to realize in meditation is you probably spend your first 25 years trying to figure out how to do it and what that is. And then in your next 25 years, you tend to, and I've been more than 50 years, so I can be the other side of the 50 as well. But in the second you really encounter all the challenges because you need to deal with the shadow and all that comes up later. And then afterwards, you become like a sage, but it doesn't happen overnight. But
Mm-hmm.
to end up as a sage is a very good place to arrive at because then you become like really valuable in the community
Mm-hmm.
because you
Um,
know what you're talking about and people trust you and have faith in you and they know that you know what you're talking about.
mhm. Of course, it takes regularity with Jenny, right? So, can you share with us at least some tips also on how regular should I be in my meditation?
Well, you yourself are not regular as a person. You don't want to be militarized, I don't think. But I mean, it's good to create a routine because you can
Mhm.
sustain it, but don't penalize yourself if you don't make it all the time, but you can get back into the swing of it fairly easily. You may get periods where your meditation is like becalmed and you're not getting anywhere, but it's good to persist with it and take a look at all the parts of it because the meditation that I do is based on study, you see. And so the study is always there, and you can study and ponder upon what you're studying. That's also meditation.
Mhm.
And then you can go into, very high states of consciousness, which comes from time to time. These are peak experiences. And your meditation isn't just like, having lunch every day, more or less the same. No, that's too boring. It's not like praying the same prayer every day. That doesn't work for a lot of people. So
Mhm.
it's about contemplation on who you are, what you are, or the higher questions of life, the metaphysical questions, taking a look at your challenges, going deep. You can go for a walk and really do some hard thinking. You can write. There is just many, many different ways to function, all of which can all be considered as meditation. And you need to be creative and not too, you know, militarized.
Thank you very much for demystifying meditation to us. You don't need to have any mantra or an object, but as simple as a walk in the park or reflection or introspection is actually meditation. Thank you, Denise, for sharing your wisdom and such with such clarity and depth. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. Maybe we'd like to request Vigenti for our last meditation, just to conclude this program, please.
Thank you. Well, meditation can be defined as deep thought about what's worth thinking about. And every day, if you study spiritual material, you do encounter some deep idea or concept or image or analogy that really touches your mind. And you think, yeah, let me think about that. Let me think about the meaning of my life, the purpose of my life. Why am I here? What am I for? Am I living according to that? Or have I forgotten who I am? Let me think what I am. What's important? What do I want? What do I fear? Let me understand myself. Let me understand my strengths and my weaknesses. Let me recognize what I'm afraid of and work through those fears. Let me understand what compromises me. Where do I betray myself? What is the level of my personal integrity? Am I comfortable with myself at the deepest level? Am I right with myself? How's my conscience? Am I at peace with my being? Am I who I present myself as? Or am I pretending? It's very important to strive to be real, to be as real and true as possible, true to your heart, true to yourself, true to your ideals, true to what you say are your values. And all the things that create ripples in your soul of discomfort, embarrassment, feelings of betrayal, or any of those things, just quietly let it go because it's not important. Live in the present moment and move forward in quiet and in peace and in happiness, because it's all in the game. It's okay. Thank you.